Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today we have the honor of speaking with David Befort, a distinguished veteran and successful entrepreneur whose career spans over 2 decades of service and significant achievements in the civilian sector. David's military journey began after graduating from the United States Air Force Academy in 2003. He served actively until 2014, took a brief hiatus, and then joined the Minnesota Air National Guard in 2017, where he continues to serve as a lieutenant colonel. David's military career is marked by his dedication and commitment to excellence. He completed pilot training and flew the A-10 Warthog, serving in various operational assignments across South Korea, Germany, and the United States, including multiple deployments to Afghanistan. His experience as an air liaison officer, or TACP, attached to the 101st and 10th Mountain Divisions significantly shaped his perspective on military service and leadership. A pivotal moment in David's career came during his third deployment to Afghanistan in 2013, where he began to question the more significant implications of war and its impact. This period of introspection and reflection set him on a path of self-discovery and personal growth, ultimately influencing his transition to civilian life. After leaving active duty, David ventured into corporate America, but quickly realized it wasn't the right fit. He then embarked on an entrepreneurial journey, starting building a successful real estate investment business and later founding Max Performance Financial in 2018. Through his company, David is dedicated to teaching others how to control and leverage their own capital using the infinite banking concept. He's helped several hundreds of clients achieve financial freedom. David's core values, faith in God, integrity, and commitment to family guide his personal and professional life. His passion for empowering others is evident in his work as he strives to make lasting impact on the lives of American families. Join us today as we delve into David's remarkable journey, exploring his military experiences, the challenges he faced during his transition, and the relentless pursuit of excellence in finance and entrepreneurship. Let's dive in and warmly welcome David Befort, a true embodiment of what it means to be a strategic veteran. David, thanks for being here, brother. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm going to have to steal that intro from you.
Yeah, brother, no problem. I'll send it right over an email after we're done with this. Hope it did you justice, man.
Yeah, well, it probably more than did me justice, so I appreciate it.
Brother, let's just jump right in. Let's talk about, you grew up in a really patriotic family, so I assume that had a huge influence on you joining the Air Force Academy. So talk about where you grew up and the influences you had in your life that led to you going to a service academy.
Yeah, I grew up in Kansas, Northeast, Kansas City really is where I say I'm from, on the Kansas side. Grew up in a very patriotic family and extended family. My grandfather was a World War II and Korean War vet. My uncle served in Vietnam, and I've got several other uncles who were also in the Marines, so kind of followed in their father's footsteps. So yeah, a lot of family history going back. I think a great uncle who was an officer in the Marines as well. So just a very pro-military, pro-America, traditional American upbringing, you would say. I had 3 siblings, just a normal, middle America childhood. And decided at an early age, I think 9th grade, my dad took me and my brothers, I've got 2 brothers, out to Colorado Springs, and we visited the U.S. Air Force Academy. And I decided at that point that that's where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to, yeah, I knew I wanted to serve in the military. Figured being an officer was what I wanted to shoot for, and I thought, hey, why not take this route? Because if I graduate, it's a guarantee, and it doesn't cost anything, uh, financially anyway.
Just time. Just
Yeah,
time.
yeah, just time,
Uh,
lots of time.
you graduated in '03 and went to the academy?
I graduated high school in '98, went to the academy for 5 years. I did the prep school, the preparatory, USAFA preparatory school there for a year before I entered the academy. And then, yeah, graduated in '03 and was off and running.
Nice. It's you're the closest guest I've had on the show that I had a BASD about the same time that I did because I came in June of '03, went to basic, got to my first unit October of '03. So it's kind of cool to get to talk to somebody who came in pretty much the same time I did.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I had my 21-year graduation date just last week. Oh, 21 years from the day I graduated and became an officer and went active duty. So it went fast.
Yeah, I believe it. Let's talk about what influenced you at the academy to become a pilot. Was that kind of your goal all along, or was it something that you kind of developed a love for in maybe prep school or something like that?
Yeah, everybody growing up, you always think, man, that looks really cool. But I didn't ever consider that it was an actual possibility because at the time I entered the academy, you had to have perfect eyesight. I did not. I was wearing contacts, wearing glasses. So I didn't even think it was going to be an option for me until my sophomore year, where they were starting to just rubber stamp waiver guys to go fly with bad eyesight as long as you're correctable to 20/20. And what is that something you
I'm
could have done?
so upset, man, because I talked to the Navy and the Air Force in 2002 about flying. I always wanted to fly, and they were like, "Nope."
Yeah, I don't know where or when that shift happened, if it even happened when I was a sophomore at the academy, or maybe I was a senior. But my sophomore year, I realized, man, I think if I can fly, that's what I want to do, and I want to fly the A-10 Warthog. That since I was a sophomore in college, that's what I wanted. So that's I set my sights on that, and ended up being blessed to receive one of the only two A-10 assignments out of my pilot training class.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool because I pursued a career in aviation after I got out of the army when I found out that you could fly with corrected vision. And I don't know how it was for you, but I realized flying wasn't everything I thought it was, especially in the civilian world. It's a lot of go out in the practice area, do a lot of steep turns and stalls, and repeatedly do that, and it's really boring and it's hot. Is that how training was for you when you were learning how to fly, or do you get to do a lot cooler shit?
No, it was every day was exciting, except in the instrument phase. You do these same instrument routes over and over, and which is necessary but not exciting. But in the some of the initial and the later stages, where you actually go out and do intentional stalls, you take the aircraft up and you actually stall it so it's falling out of the sky, and then you have to recover it doing this procedure, and you have to do the procedure just right to recover and pull out of that nosedive. But that was quite a rush. And then you learn, formation flying, where you're, in fingertip formation, seeing you can see the white of the eyes of the guy flying next to you in the other jet. So it gets really fun. And I look back now and I think, man, especially when we graduated to the fighter trainer, that the T-38, they let us fly that solo in close formation, like underneath, doing loops with, just following another jet. You could actually see all the screws on the bottom of the jet. You could count them if you wanted to. But I was alone in the jet doing that. And I look back and I'm like, what was the Air Force thinking? That's crazy to let some 22, 23-year-old kid do that on his own with these $1 million machinery. And just the lives in the other jet that you could run into that jet. And unfortunately, it happens, and I've got a classmate who that happened to. But um, it was a lot of fun. But you're right, civilian flying. I did that actually for a couple years. on the commercial side, and it wasn't for me. The lifestyle and just the droning, and you can make good money, and it's a super easy job, and a lot of guys enjoy the lifestyle. For me, it was the lifestyle I didn't enjoy, living in hotels.
Yeah, I think that's really what turns me off about it is the airline world, to me it's almost not enough responsibility because you just show up and plug some numbers into the A cars, walk around the jet and take off, go land wherever you're going to land, particularly before you get to the legacy airlines, right? The regional airlines, you're doing hops from Seattle to Portland 4 or 5 times a day. That is not for me
And that's what
at
I
all.
did. I did that for 2.5 years, and it's a grind, man, and you're sweating and making almost nothing, making peanuts, although now they got better contracts because they need them so badly that they're making quite a bit more than I was making, but it's, yeah, I mean, when you're needed, you're needed. When an emergency happens and you need somebody in that jet, it's like kinda like guys describe war, where it's long periods of absolute boredom interrupted by moments of terror.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. So you got the A-10, you said one of two slots. What would have been your next platform had you not gotten the A-10? What were you interested in flying?
And probably the F-16 just because it's single seat. I didn't want to have somebody else in the aircraft with me.
So just very independent. You wanted to be a single seater guy out there by yourself.
Yeah, I didn't want anybody else in the jet with me.
I love it, man. I relate to that a lot. Like, because then the onus is all on you, right? Like, there's nobody else to blame. It's just point the finger because here it is, and I think that's cool, man. What is some of the coolest things that you learned, training and through your assignments flying the A-10, like that really stand out to you that you still kind of go back to and find, discipline in your business and everything else today?
And probably two things that come to mind. One, there's no such thing as perfection. You will never attain perfection ever. I don't care how long you're flying the A-10. Every sortie, you come back and you debrief and you point out every mistake you made, and you realize, man, I really sucked, but we got the mission done. So there's no such thing as a perfect mission. You'll never have a perfect flight, which means the second thing is you never hit what I call a rival syndrome, where I know everything there is to know. I'm the best there could ever be. I've got nothing, nobody could teach me anything else. You just don't get that in the fighter community in the Air Force. It's constant beating you down to build you back up. So, I mean, talk about developing thick skin when you're before you even become qualified as a mission ready wingman who can go to war. You spend over 2 solid years being evaluated every single time you fly. 2 straight years, never flying without being evaluated and being told you screwed up here, 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 and here. Get better. Get better or get out.
I think that's a good approach, particularly just having gone through just regular civilian flight school myself, all the emphasis on flight safety, aviate, navigate, communicate, but then recognizing hazardous attitudes. And you just alluded to one of the bigger ones, right? Like the macho attitude, you can't tell me anything, I know everything kind of thing. And it sounds like they've created an environment in that training pipeline that doesn't allow for that to happen.
Yeah, you don't you don't get the chance to sit back and relish in a really good sortie or really good mission for very long, because the next one's right around the corner and you're going to screw something up. So as long as you consistently make good decisions, I think that's really the hallmark of a really good pilot is somebody who consistently makes good decisions, and the wrong decisions you make aren't devastating. What's that quote? Flying is not inherently dangerous. It's just unforgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree with that 100% for sure. How did that airplane handle? I'm just kind of curious as a pilot. Like, I know the difference between a 172 and a 182. I remember taking that first step, and particularly with the short field approach to landing or the power off 180, it was like the 172 will glide forever. The 182 fell out of the sky like a brick, right? There was some responsiveness issues between transferring from the 172 to the 182, and particularly when I was in CFI learn how to fly low wings, I noticed that they were way more responsive than the high wings. And so, how did the A-10 handle? Was it pretty easy to fly? Did it take, was there a learning curve to it?
Yeah, I'd say it was easy to fly. Flying becomes the easy part when you're flying a combat aircraft. It's the takeoff, landing, get from point A to point B. That's second nature, and that doesn't take any effort whatsoever, really. And especially with the A-10, the big fat wings, you can fly really slow. Landings were a piece of cake. They don't make two-seaters, so the first time you ever fly that thing, you're by yourself. So I think we did like 4 or 5 simulators on the ground, and then you jump in the jet and you go fly it. So after you've been through 300 hours of pilot training and doing flying a training jet that's faster than the A-10, things kind of slow down a bit with the A-10. So flying it is not a problem. Very stable, very easy to maneuver, but it's a good thing it's easy to fly because you're doing everything else that there is to do in the jet on top of flying.
I'm glad you point that out because that's one of the things that I found most challenging about flying. I sometimes forget how exhausting, particularly instrument flying was, right? Just staring at instruments, paying attention and briefing approaches and holds and routes and all of that stuff. It's like you have 25 things going on inside the cockpit. And particularly as a student, your instructor is not there to help you. They're there to make sure that you learn how to do this on your own. So I totally relate to what you're talking about. I can only imagine the 40 other things you have to do inside of an A-10, particularly on a combat mission, talking on the radios to ground troops, right? Talking to the JTAC, understanding where the troops are, finding the troops, right? Like all of that goes into this, huh?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So flying becomes the easy part. It's everything else that goes along with it that really differentiates the the best from the average to the below average, I guess you would say. Because let's face it, in every career field you're in, there's still the guys at the top and then the guys who kind of fall at the bottom of that scale. Even if you're a special operator, you're going to have the really good ones, and then the dudes are just getting by.
Yeah. No, there's still a couple F-16 pilots out there I'm pissed off at, but that's a story for another day. You served in various assignments and multiple deployments to Afghanistan. What were some of the most rewarding and challenging aspects of your time over in Afghanistan? I assume because that's all you listed, that's the only place that you went. I know they were way more prevalent. The A-10s were in Afghanistan than they ever were in Iraq. I know we had some. Very rarely did we have them, but what were some of the challenging and rewarding aspects of those deployments for you? Not the third one, because I want to go into detail and have a conversation about your third one because this one really interests me.
Yeah, well, the third one, I it wasn't even a flying deployment, unfortunately. So I did 2 flying deployments. They come with different challenges and different highs and lows. At the beginning, a lot of times, especially the first deployment, the lows were, man, we didn't employ. I went out there and I drilled circles in the sky for 3.5 hours and came back and didn't get to lay down a single round or a bomb or anything. And but once you get that monkey off your back and you start employing, you start to appreciate those quiet nights because the only reason we exist as an A-10 community is to protect you on the ground. So those nights when nothing happened, I was super thankful for those nights because that meant you guys were safe and you guys were going home that night.
Right? You started looking forward to the quiet nights because you're right. Like you guys, you said you exist to serve the ground troops, right? And if you guys are getting called out, that means we're in trouble.
Right. Right, which was exciting to actually get to do the mission that you trained for, all those hundreds or thousands of hours you're spending training, but knowing the effects that has on the guys on the ground and the impact what you guys are going through. Um, I was thankful for those quiet nights because it was, if it's quiet for us, it's quiet for you.
Yeah, brother, and I can tell you we were thankful for the nights that you guys showed up because man, that's a boost in morale instantly. So I'm sure you've heard that your whole career. I'm sure I'm not the first ground guy that's come up to you and said that to you, but it's the truth, man. It's a boost of motivation to see you guys coming for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen the YouTube videos of you guys on the ground cheering as soon as the A-10 show up on station. So that's good. Job satisfaction.
Yeah, for sure. So you said you were a air liaison officer, attack P, attached to the 101st and the 10th Mountain. Now, was that the role that you didn't fly? Is that a non-flying role or is that a flying role?
Yeah, that's a non-flying role. So I did three A-10 assignments, and then I got selected to be a air liaison officer. It was actually I was attached officially to the first ID out of Fort Riley, but when I deployed with like as a solo. A spot came up, and they needed somebody with my rank and experience to fill it, so I got thrown into it, and that was with the 101st and the 10th Mountain, and it was non-flying. You're no kidding, just a liaison. You're the resident air expert for the brigade commander, division commander, whomever you report to.
I imagine that was probably pretty boring for you after doing two
It was pretty
deployments
boring,
as
man.
a
I mean, especially in Afghanistan. By that time, this was 2013 when I did that deployment. That war had been raging for 10 years, and everybody understood air. They understood ISR, and um, there wasn't a whole lot for me to do, quite frankly, other than eat a lot and lift weights a lot and read a lot of books and prepare for getting out of the military.
Right, because I assume while you're playing TAC P over there, running around with all the brass, the higher brass. I mean, because you were brass too, but the political brass, we'll say, is when you said you learned how to question the larger implications of war, and this is something that I didn't start doing until last year, to be honest, and I kind of can relate, I guess, to what you're alluding to here because it didn't make me feel very good about all the things that I had been over there doing. So, do you want to go into this and talk about kind of what opened your eyes to what was going on and how that sat with you and how I can imagine that probably influenced your decision to get out, correct?
Yeah, amongst other things. I mean, there's always 100 reasons to get out for probably everybody, but there's one or two big ones. Um, and yeah, during that third deployment, I was in Bagram for the second time. The first time I was there in '08. I came back in 2013, and between 2013 2014, and I just saw how much that place had been built up. It was a veritable city in and of itself. It was enormous. They had permanent housing. Um, you saw so many contractors just walking around there. I have no idea what the hell they did all day. Frankly, probably just sat back, did a couple little things, and made a ton of tax-free money. Um, but I started questioning why are we still over here? What are we doing here? And the only thing I could come up with, because let's face it, we were fighting dudes wearing sandals and dresses. That's who we were fighting. They're no match for the U.S. war machine, like zero. Yet we were over there for how many years doing this, fighting these idiots in sandals and dresses, living in caves, and for what? Like what? And I'm not saying for what was the purpose of being over there, because I think everybody's service over there was noble, and I would never downplay what we did, because really we made a lot of progress with. I mean, imagine the lives that a lot of women got to have over there because of our presence, and the difference that make, the education that came to their country, maybe certain tribes or parts of the country that wanted it, and just the yeah, you know, I'm a man of faith, and spreading the message of who I believe is the real creator over there, that they never would have heard had we not been over there. Um, But what I saw was this is a contractor war. The only reason we're here, the only reason the US government has us over here is because people are making money and politicians are making money through these back deals, giving deals to contractors, and on and on. It's a money machine. I mean, just, I don't know how else to say it. And then I started going back through history and looking at, I mean, I'm a money guy. So my business is teaching people how to control their own money. And I'm pretty well versed in the history of money and the history of banking in this country and the dangers of banking and the fact that bankers have been behind us getting involved in World War One, World War Two. Bankers they're profiting on both sides of the war. That's that's the world we live in, where it's the golden rule, Adam. Have you ever heard the golden rule? There's one that we all grow up with, but then there's the real golden rule, which is he who has the gold makes the rules. And that's exactly what you're seeing across the world is whoever's got the money is making the rules. And I mean, if you want to read an eye-opening book on a lot of the stuff that we've done throughout the world, read Confessions of an Economic Hitman. That's a pretty eye-opening book. And
I'm gonna have to check that one out. I've been recommended that one before.
yeah, so it'll open your eyes to what goes on behind the scenes and why we are where we are in the world. But it kind of, because when you join, you were a young kid when you joined up and put the flag on your shoulder, and you're full of red, white, and blue, man. That's what you bleed. That's what you believe. I think in the era we grew up in the 80s and 90s, you really believed your government. You believed what they said. You trusted that they had the country's best interest in mind. Um, and I don't know, maybe that was the case at one point, but man, you look back through history. Um, another book you could read is The Naked Communist. That's an incredible book that really exposes a lot of um, communist infiltration in our country and in our government, even 60, 70 years ago. So, and I don't want to get off into these tangents, but
No, it's good, man. These are the conversations that need to be had, and I completely agree with you, in what you said about Bagram being built up into a city with permanent housing on it. I have never been to Bagram. My deployment to Afghanistan was in 2012. I was in the Panjwai district, which is the birthplace of the Taliban, out at Kop Mushan. So anything we needed to do went through Kandahar, and Kandahar was the same way. They had a fucking boardwalk with a TGI
Fridays, which is garbage food, and I don't pay for food when I'm deployed, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember having to go up there because that deployment, I had weaseled my way into a fourth deployment as a typical infantry guy will do, and I had to work the talk. So I had to go up there and check on all our medevacs from time to time. And I'm walking around in a faded uniform that's less than clean because you know how it is out in the shit, right? And people like, "Where's your PT belt?" Like, what do you mean, where's my PT belt? Like, you can get a ticket for that. I'm like, what are you gonna give me a fucking ticket for? Like, well, what are you even doing here? Why does your uniform look like that? So you see that helicopter that's coming in? Do you know there's still a war going on over here? Right? Like, just so out of touch with reality. And I didn't have enough awareness back then to see it. I was still very much bleeding the red, white, and blue and doing my job, particularly because you know, I saw all the difference that we had made, and I did 3 to Iraq. So I saw a lot of infrastructure changes in Iraq. I remember my second deployment. We were in Heat, Iraq. We took that city, which was under literally shit water, and we rebuilt the roads and gave them their market back, and ran off a bunch of people and made their lives better, only for us to turn around and pull out, leave them with nothing, and for it to go right back to the way that it was. Um, hindsight's 2020. I look back at the change in ROE over all of my deployments for guys on the ground, and it's like, no wonder, speaking to what you said about, like, we're fighting dudes in dresses and sandals. How are they a match for the military, the US war machine? Well, I'll tell you how, because our hands were tied behind our backs, right? Like, they just at one point, I could not engage anybody unless they engaged me first. And it's like, I just watched this guy do the bad thing that we're here to stop them from doing. And I have to wait for him to shoot at me first. Come on, And so I definitely, I relate all of that. It just took me a lot longer, I guess, to be sour with it, And I can imagine how that would influence, your decision to get out and kind of move on with life.
Yeah, one of the many reasons that I think we all, my eyes didn't really start getting opened up until I started reading books and looking back at history through the lens of something other than the American history textbook that I was fed in grade school, because all of that's complete garbage. That's unfortunately.
So after that deployment to Afghanistan, when did you come back? Pretty late in the year.
After that third one, I came back springtime 2014.
Okay, so spring 2014, you got out in 2014 towards the end of the year, then I assume. So let's move into your the transition phase, or the transition hole as I like to call it, that so many of us fall into when we're getting out. And let's talk about the main challenges you faced when you were getting out and transitioning. And I always get curious because I think there's this like dichotomy between, the opportunities that are presented to officers as they're getting out versus the opportunities, particularly for, the combat MOSs who don't necessarily have a soft skill that translates to the civilian world. But I've talked to enough people on this show to know that it's really the same no matter what. I mean, maybe it was a little different for you because you knew you could probably go right into a job flying at the airlines. I don't know what that looked like for you, but let's have that conversation and let's talk about what your transition challenges were like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm sure there's differences in the way, at the time, being a junior military officer transitioning out versus, somebody who just finished one enlistment period, or maybe two enlistment periods with, as an infantryman. Um, the one thing the civilian world looks for is leadership. And man, there's no better crucible for leadership than the military, period. So they can't teach that on the civilian side. They can't, like, all the leadership that you learn during your time in the military, it would take them two lifetimes to train somebody up in a corporate job to have that kind of leadership experience and confidence, I think. So the caliber of person, it was really interesting. The caliber of person I worked with as a pilot in the Air Force, and specifically, I would say fighter squadrons, you work with a caliber that's going to be tough to match anywhere else as an organizational whole, because these are highly motivated type A, completely independent and um, you know responsible, disciplined. You don't have to tell them anything; they just do their job. Um, I think that's hard to find in any organization outside the military. But even if you're getting a paycheck to do so. But when I transitioned, uh, I thought, hey, corporate America, that's where I want to be, because then I have some control over my life, and control is kind of the theme throughout my lifetime. My adult later on, when transitioning out of the military, like, I'm just looking for control. I thought that's the key, and that's something I can jump right into. And I always wanted to be a business owner. In fact, for probably the last 5 years of my military career, I was reading books on business and how to own a gym for dummies, books like that, or just different types of business books, because I knew that was a drive inside of me. I just didn't know what business I should do or how I would do it. I just knew I wanted to be a business owner at some point. I didn't think the best time to be a business owner was right after I left the military, because I had three young kids and a wife, and I needed to provide for the family. So, but there was a headhunter organization for just junior military officers that prepared officers very, very well for interviewing with companies in corporate America. So I did that. I spent about maybe 10 months prepping for that, and ended up going to a weekend conference and got to interview with like 12 different companies in 2 days. And these are really good companies, like Fortune 500 type companies. And I got callbacks from went out to visit a few throughout the country and made my decision on one up here in Minnesota. It was a medical device company, and I was a compliance program manager. So going from A-10 pilot or ALO working with the Army to being a compliance program manager, it was quite a shift. But guess what? They still wanted me because of my leadership, not because I had any knowledge whatsoever in medical devices or their compliance program. But I was able to parlay what I did in the Air Force around leadership and around compliance is a big part of the military to get a job doing that. And it was a great job. I made more money in that than I was making as a major in the Air Force. And it's super easy, 8 to 5 kind of schedule, and still stressful. Everything you do is going to be stressful. Whether you're working for yourself or somebody else, it's still stressful. But I did that, man, for about a year, thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to climb the ladder. And within a year, I started saying, no, there's no way I can do this for another 30 years. It would suck the soul out of me.
So did you start experiencing burnout? Is that what it was? Just sitting behind a desk doing the same thing over and over, no variety, I assume. I mean, probably hard to form relationships, kind of, I think we all get out looking for relationships in the civilian world like we form in the military, and you don't get that at all in the corporate world at all. I think if you do, you probably should stick around in that company because it's a really good company.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it was burnout. It was just lack of purpose and lack of motivation. Like I was like, where is this going? Wherever it's leading, I don't want to be there. Um, but I would say they did a great job of hiring veterans. So one of the buddies, like in the cubicle in my office area, was a Naval Academy grad, helicopter pilot, just got out, and so we became best buds in the office, and there was a big veteran group that we would have lunch every day together. So that was really cool. I mean, they're Marines, Army, and Air Force and Navy. All branches were at every single lunch basically that we had while I was there. But it was really, man, what's the point of this? Like, this doesn't motivate me. These people get super excited about creating another SOP for the compliance department, and I'm like just sitting back thinking in my head, I can't believe you guys actually care about this. I don't. Maybe I should leave. And I mean, God bless them. Some people do care, and thank God they do, because there's some really important jobs. When you're talking medical devices and a lot of different fields where we need people who really care and really enjoy doing that work. I didn't. And especially going from the military environment to that environment where you're working with a bunch of middle age, I'd call them like middle aged moms. Nothing against them, but they weren't 25-year-old fighter pilots with their hair on fire. It was a different environment. Um, so after a year, I decided, man, I can't do this. I got to figure out a way to quit my job. And I started exploring, and I figured, hey, everybody does real estate. It looks like real estate is probably the quickest way for me to generate enough income to leave my job. So that's what I did. I started studying, spending my evenings and my weekends building a real estate investment business and joining a mastermind coaching group and trying to put deals together and everything until about a year and a half later. So 2.5 years total in this corporate job, I quit. I walked into the boss's office, gave her my resignation, and said, I'm out of here in 2 weeks. Um, and I hadn't made a dollar in my real estate business by that point, but I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I would say that's probably one of the biggest risks I've taken, is just knowing that, just taking the risk with 3 small kids, a mortgage, and everything else that comes with that life. I'm leaving behind this 6-figure income to go create my own business or work in my own business that I haven't made a dollar from yet. So that was my foray into entrepreneurship and being a business owner.
I love that, man, because real estate seems to be the most common one that people get told about to start their entrepreneurial journeys, and that's a brutal business. I don't know about the investment side of it, but I know like the realtor side of it is like that's you're not going to make any money for 2 years, period. Like you are just going to try to get some deals basically and just learn how to get deals. And it's the same. I went to the insurance industry and it was like that too. You don't know what you don't know about those industries until you get in them, and they are brutal. Um, so taking that risk, oftentimes I talk to vets who do. I'm an outlier. I don't have the kids. I've got the mortgage, but I make enough money that I've structured my life to be able to do this full time, not making any money and be okay. What was it that just led you to make that decision? How did you come up with all this faith in yourself that you would figure it out and make it work? Because I do advise, veterans who are like, I do have a family, I can't be an entrepreneur. It's like, well, you can, you just have to make the time for it outside of your regular job that's supporting your family, right? And that's where your discipline comes in, and you just have to grind. It's a grind, it sucks, and you're just going to have to do it, or else you're never going to be an entrepreneur. That's just the way that it is. So you just dove right in head first and was like, I'm miserable, I quit. How did you make peace with that internally?
It really there. I had a few requirements to before I would quit. I said I need to have this much money in cash reserves. And what I do now, teaching people how to create their own banking system, I've been doing that on an individual level since 2010. So storing my capital, letting it accumulate somewhere very safe where I always had access to it, but it was growing and compounding at the same time. I set a number. I said, hey, and it was basically 1 year's worth of a paycheck, like my one year salary that I was making at that current job. I said, I need that much in savings, and then I'm going to quit. And as soon as I hit that number, I said, I'm out. I'm done. Knowing that I did this thing. Tim Ferriss. Yeah, of course. Tim Ferriss. The 4 hour work week and everything else. I got really into that stuff, and he's got this thing he calls fear setting, where and I think Napoleon Hill writes about it as well in a book.
Think and Grow Rich.
Not Think and Grow Rich, but
Is it
how
his
to,
other one
or
then?
no, is Dale Carnegie.
In How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, that's his famous book, but he's got another one that did just as many wonders for me as that one, which is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
I
And
have not read that one yet.
that's that's a great book, highly recommended, because if there's one thing you do as an entrepreneur, it's worry and stress and say, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I get to this level. No, you won't. If you're not happy now, you're not going to be happy then, trust me. But what that book taught me, along with Tim Ferriss, is fear setting. Ask, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Well, in my mind, the absolute worst that could happen is I don't make any money whatsoever in the first year, and I go through all my savings. Okay, then what? Well, then I just go back and get another six-figure job because I had the qualifications. I had the confidence to know that I can be a good employee. Not anymore. I'm unemployable now as an employee.
Same.
Back then, yeah,
Same.
I could be a good
Yeah.
employee. I could play that role in order to feed my family if I had to. So I knew I could go back and do that. And but what's the alternative? I'm on my deathbed at 85 years old, thinking back, man, I was a real pussy for not even trying. Like, what the number one regret for people dying, like old people in hospice, is that they didn't do what they wanted to do in life.
I hear that. That's a driving factor that keeps me going at what I do every single day. Not making any money is not any fun, but I'll tell you what is fun: helping veterans, talking to people like you, getting to hear stories and share them with the internet for other members of our community to see it. It's all worth it to me, And I agree. I am 100% unemployable. You are not going to find me working for somebody else ever again, because I'll just say fuck it. Like, no, this is not how I want my life to look. I control my life, not anybody else. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, yeah, and that's that. It took me to about, I don't know, 35 years old to come to that realization that I haven't. Yeah, I've been doing what I wanted to do in life, but basically the terms have always been dictated by somebody else. How much you make, where you can live, what you can actually work on day in, day out. Like that was determined. I let somebody else determine that. And some people can be happy doing that, and some people can't. And if you're not happy doing that, you got to find something that's gonna, especially I think as men, we need like our vocation is very much a part of our identity. And if you don't have fulfillment and purpose in what you're doing on a daily basis, if it's just making money, money doesn't, it can it can make you happier. Like I have no doubt about that. There's a certain level that hey, it's one less thing I have to stress about paying the bills. So that's great. Or I can buy that new car I wanted.
It's just a tool, though. It's a tool. It's not the be all end all, right?
Yeah. It's very important. It's a very important tool, but what does that money, how does that money change who you are? Um, I think I've heard it said more money just makes you more of who you already are. So if you're unhappy and you're always waiting for the next success or the next level or the next step, when you get there, you're not you're not going to be any happier because you've moved the goalpost. Now that's your new norm, and the goalpost is now higher. And you just do that perpetually over your lifetime until you're like, you look back and you're like, wow, I should have been happy by now, but I'm not.
For sure. So you in the little questionnaire before you came on the show, you mentioned dealing with self doubt and the difficulty of starting over multiple times. So how did you overcome the self doubt, and what were you experiencing self doubt in? Was it just am I capable of doing this, or am I making the right decision? The traditional self doubting things, or was it something else?
Yeah, I did transition several times. So I transitioned from the military to corporate America to starting a real estate investment business. From there, transition to my primary business right now of teaching people how to create their own personal banking system and into commercial flying. So I did that for a couple of years before I quit while I was building this business. Um, every time I transitioned, of course, there's always some unknown. You have no idea. Is this going to pay off? How long is it going to take to pay off? How long do I have I guess, struggle? How long do you have to grind? I said you have to grind for as long as you want to keep growing.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah, like once you
It's a
stop
never
and
ending
lay
grind.
back, you're not going to grow anymore. And if you're happy with that, fine. I'm not. But and I don't think most of our the type of person we are, we're not fine just standing still. You always want to reach for what's next. Um, but self doubt. I was never in doubt on my capabilities to do something. I think mostly it was a doubt like how much return am I going to get for this investment, and am I going to put my family in jeopardy for doing this? Because a lot
Well,
of
I
unknown.
think I think the answer to that question is, well, you're gonna get a lot of return for taking this chance, right?
Yeah, and I'd say yeah, for me, I've got a lot of return in the current business that I'm in. I mean, really run two different businesses right now, but the return on investment, so the return on my time is phenomenal, better than I could ever have imagined. Before, in my real estate investment business, the return was awful. I hated what I did. I liked it at the beginning, and then as time went on, it just became. It's like your dream becomes your passion becomes your prison. Like I'm just doing this because I have to, and I didn't enjoy it. I was only doing it for the money, and when that's the only thing I cared about in that business, of course, I cared about my integrity and doing good deals and being honest and upright and growing a good business. But the end result was the money, and it didn't fit me, and it wasn't great. I mean, I made enough to live on. That was it.
But that's a good example, and I'm glad that you kind of talk about that because it's okay to pivot too. It's okay to get into business and understand, cut your chops on something that may not be the be all end all or the thing that you end up building your empire out of, but it's a start, right? And you probably learned a ton of valuable lessons doing that first business, right? The real estate investment business, whether you hated it or not. And I can relate to that. You know, I've tried many of things in the digital entrepreneurship space, from drop shipping to faceless YouTube to trying to run my own blog, and none of it really resonated with me until hello, here we're doing this, right? And not looking at a podcast as a business, when my mind was open to that and somebody puts the pieces together for me, it's like, oh, okay, I could do this forever. This is so much fun, right? And so I've pivoted as many times as probably you have. And, again, from flying, like, well, this is definitely not for me. Let me try and be a private jet pilot because that would be way cooler. There's more responsibility. And it's like, I don't like any of the people that are in that world. So that's not an option for me either, right? Like, and it just learning to pivot, and I guess really leaning on that resiliency, right? Like, oh, well, this one didn't work out, but I'm going to go try something else. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think, and I was of the same mindset too. Like, well, hey, I got to figure it out right now and start this second career right now. So it's got to be the right one. It's not the case, man. You will find you'll go from one thing to the next until you finally land on what's right for you. And just don't burn any bridges along the way, and don't take any risks that are too big that are going to put your family in harm's way. And you won't have any regrets. I mean, I don't have any regrets about corporate America because it was the right thing for that time in my life. And that is what pushed me to want to start my own business faster. I think if I had had a job that I really enjoyed in corporate America, that would have been a bad thing because I would have not had that push to, hey, you need to get out of here and go do something that you're going to be fulfilled doing, and build something for yourself instead of somebody else.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I had a job that I absolutely liked until the owner stopped showing up and I was running the whole business for him. And I was like, I'm not doing this for $15 an hour, bro.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
right.
out. Like, I'm gonna go figure it out on my own, and that was my segue into insurance and the bad taste that left in my mouth because you don't know what you don't know about that industry. But um what strategies or mindsets did you use to kind of navigate the challenges of pivoting so many times?
Man, you know what? I started reading a lot of books and listening to a lot of podcasts and learning from other people that went before me. I mean, podcasts, I don't remember when did podcasts really, 'cause I've got a podcast too, but I don't know when they really came on the scene, maybe early 20 teens or something where they were really getting popular.
So I'd say like 2010, I think, is when they like launched, and mostly celebrities were successful, and then through the mid teens is when they really took off. And I'm the same way. Read books and watch podcasts, listen to podcasts. That's all I do anymore. That's it. There's so much value in both of those things, and I don't know. Like TV doesn't hold my interest anymore. I'll watch the occasional movie here or there, but not at all. Most of my time spent on YouTube researching how other people talk to other people.
Yeah. And that's great, man, because you can find anything you're passionate about on YouTube. You can certainly find some kind of niche that you want to get involved in. Um, but so listen, reading a lot of books and putting myself around other people who were in the places that I wanted to be, which is why I paid for my first year working full time in that real estate investment business. I spent $25,000 to join a coaching group, a mastermind group. I mean, I pulled out $30,000 that entire first year to live on, and I spent $25,000 to join this mastermind group that, to get together, I had once a quarter, I'd have to fly somewhere else and spend a few days in a hotel with everybody. Um, but it was about making that investment in myself. It sounds cliche, but I mean, you're not going to get an ROI on anything like you get on yourself. Whether that's, if you want to be a project manager, go out and get your oh, I forgot what it's called, your project manager. Yeah.
get an MBA and your Six Sigma black
Six
belt or
Sigma, yeah,
whatever,
like
and
all that
yeah,
stuff. Like
that
if
one.
that's what you want to do, invest in yourself and get that stuff. Don't wait for somebody else to pay for it. Like go take the initiative and do that. Um, because I've everything I've done along the way, I've never regretted any money I've ever spent to put myself around other people who are who are somewhere that I want to be.
Yeah, and that was gonna be my next question for you because, I'm going to my first mastermind at the end of July. It's a mastermind for podcasters. Didn't know such a thing existed, but, like, I'm all in on this thing, and it's not cheap. But speak to coaching and masterminds and, like, I don't know, I heard it somewhere, I don't remember where I heard it, but it's like, we're not afraid to go put ourselves into $120,000 of debt to go to 4 years of college to get a degree that is, by all means, pretty worthless anymore, right? Like, nobody I think it's a really low percentage of people who actually do the job that they have a degree for, barring, like, the STEM fields, right? Like, I'm not talking about those degrees, but I have a fucking bachelor's of arts, right? Like, what am I doing with that? Nothing. But people want to scoff at $1,500 to go pay for a 3-day mastermind of a brutal schedule too. It starts with a 5 a.m. workout and doesn't end until like 9 p.m. every single night, and there's no free time. It's jam packed with stuff I'm salivating to go and learn. You know, and so can you talk about the importance of investing in yourself like that? Because I think there's not enough people out there talking about masterminds and coachings and communities even, right? Paid communities. I've tons of benefits that I've gotten out of those.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, if you're trying to go it solo without, you're doing the whole bootstrapping thing, which is great, but you think you can make it on your own, um, it's going to take you a lot longer to get there than it would otherwise. So pay the money and you know, get that, move over to the HOV lane and get to drive faster than everybody else. All those other solo entrepreneurs sitting over here in the normal lanes, backed up in traffic, they're not going anywhere. You move over to the HOV lane, you pay more, or you pay the toll and go on the tollway. It's going to get you there a lot faster, and the rewards are going to be so much greater. And you're going to find people because when you're going it alone, you think you're the only person with that struggle, and that goes with anything, right? Like mental health, anxiety, depression, um, family troubles, marital issues. Like you think you're alone. I mean, once you start putting yourself around other people, they've all been there and done that. It's you're just one of them. Now, and it kind of gives you some identity. Like I'm one of these people, and this is who I want to be. I paid for so much coaching over my life. I mean, even Tiger Woods has a swing coach. You telling me the greatest golf player in the history of the world has a coach that he pays money for? He should be the one coaching him, right? No, he has his own. So what makes you think you can do business without having a business coach? I mean, I've paid for when I went to that real estate business, I paid that $25,000 for 2 years in a row. Spent 50 grand on that coaching group. And that was before when I was at my job building my business. I spent like 2,500 bucks to join a virtual coaching group just to get started. When I went into the transition to the insurance business, which is technically the field I'm in, so I want to talk to you about that. Um, I hired a coach. I made zero money, almost no money that first year, but I spent $10,000 to hire a coach to help me get started and build that because I had, he'd been doing it for 30 years and I'd never done it. So it's like I could try to like make every mistake in the book myself, or I could just learn from him.
Right. Do you regret any of the money you spent on any of that stuff at all?
Not at all. I, I only regret probably not signing up for a second year with the first coach I had in this business. But I went on and put myself around other mentors who had been around and would informally mentor me as well.
And I think that's the important part about paying for masterminds and coaching is you end up networking and getting access to people, like-minded people, people who are moving the same direction that you are, versus hanging around, the regular people that you've always hung around with, who don't have vision like you do, who, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with these people. That's not what I'm saying. And they can always be your friends, but it's like, you're the sum of the five people you hang around the most, right? Like, I believe that now more than anything. I heard it my whole life, but now, just because of putting myself out there, taking a chance, talking to people, learning, the opportunities that are presenting themselves to me, it's mind blowing. I'm getting invited to go and do things that I thought were never possible for somebody who grew up in the Midwest and Southern Indiana like I did, right? And was told my whole life, you got to go to college and get a good job if you want to see success. And I'm like, that's that's not success to me. That's slavery to me, right? Like, that's not what I want to do. I'm excited to go to my first mastermind. I finally, scraped together enough money to be able to pay for this, and it's close enough that I can go and enjoy the whole weekend of intense. It's almost, I feel like it's going to be like some intense training event that we did in the army at one point, but I'm excited for it. And so what military experiences did you use to prepare, for going all in on the business? Probably lean pretty heavy on your discipline. Probably lean pretty heavy on the fact that we're adaptable, particularly as an A-10 pilot. I feel like you guys are pretty adaptable, right? Like, what else did you lean on?
Yeah, I would say it does help to look back and look at the things you accomplished. That a lot of your peers in this world will never even attempt to do anything half as hard as what you did, and took half as much commitment and discipline to get through it. So when you look back at that, there's another really good book. I really love Dan Sullivan. He's a strategic coach for business owners, entrepreneurs, but he's got dozens of books out. One of his is called The Gap and the Gain. He says most people, and I fell victim to this, live in the gap, where they look at where they are to where they think they should be. And if you're always looking from here I am now, where I should be, you're never going to be happy, and you're never going to feel successful. But if you look at the gain, you look at where you are based on where you were just 1 year ago or 5 years ago, you can look like if I look in the gain in the current business I'm in, it's unrecognizable. Like, every aspect of my life is unrecognizable. Uh, and that gives me motivation, gives me satisfaction. Um, I'm never satisfied, but it gives me satisfaction, and it gives you a positive mental attitude. I mean, that's really underrated. A lot of people think that you have to really be, avoid all pleasure whatsoever, and just be mad and nose to the grindstone, and I'm just going to do this and be unhappy. I'm going to trade happiness for success, because success is the most important thing. Well, tell me who considers themselves a success without being happy. So I actually went through a whole phase for about a year where it was after I went through a divorce, and a really, really difficult, the most challenging year of my life in 2018, where my marriage imploded, and I had to reevaluate what I was doing in life. And I was not, I was not a fun person to be around. And I knew that. It's not like I wasn't drinking and, raging and yelling at people. I was just not happy whatsoever. I had no fulfillment, and wasn't trying to get my happiness from people, instead of, in my opinion, the only place you can get true joy is from God, but it's a decision. So I was like, I got to figure this happiness thing out. So I started reading books for like a whole year on the happiness equation, or, I forget the names of the books, but they were all a little bit cheesy. I was like, you know what? It actually starts to make a little bit of sense. And it really helped me reframe my mind. And it's really all about the way you think.
Yeah, that's an interesting lens to look at it through because I'd never thought about really looking at it from look at what I've accomplished already and where I'm at now, right? And thinking about my journey over the last year, it's like, holy shit, he's right. Right. Like I look back, I mean, just physically 93 pounds in 11 months, lost 93 pounds in 11 months, and that's to your point, right? Like if I look at it from that lens and look backwards, it's like, well, 11 months is not really a long time, and I accomplished it just in that one feat alone a ton. You know what I mean? Well, like that's pretty impressive. And then I look at other aspects of my life, like you were saying, and it's like I look at pictures of myself from that long ago, and I don't recognize the man that I see in those pictures. He doesn't exist anymore. He's gone. The guy who
Yeah,
was,
not just the physical man, but the mental.
but yeah, the mental, truly, like I'm in my soul, right? Like I know that person is completely different. The person that's before you now is not in any way, shape, form, or fashion, physical, mental, emotional, metaphysical, spiritual, any way am I the same as I was after that trip to Peru. And it's like, man, that's so cool. Like we have the power to change that ourselves. And it's, oh man, I don't really have the words for it because like I've never had somebody put it to me the way you just put it to me. And it's like, well, I was already doing that. I was comparing, not really comparing, but looking back at myself and seeing the actual progress now. I'm present enough to notice all of that stuff. I'm not angry all the time. I'm not cloudy in my brain all the time. I'm very aware of what's going on and aware of the undisciplined thoughts that creep in. And so I can reframe those so that they serve me now, versus just spinning out of control and dwelling on all the bullshit, that I was doing before.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen by accident. It's 100% intentional. You have to be intentional about doing that and training your mind and training your body, just like you did in the army. You trained your body to withstand all the rucking you did with carrying however many tens of pounds, or hundreds of pounds of equipment in the hot desert. Like you had to train your body, just like you have to train your mind. Your mind, it truly is the most pliable thing in the world is your mind, but it's up to you, man. Nobody else can train it for you.
Yeah, brother. No, I'm with you. So let's move into, Max Performance Financial and give us the abbreviated version of the history of money because I think to me, this is one of the most important topics that we talk about or we should be talking about because I didn't learn anything about how money works or anything like that until I was in my mid 30s. I'm of the opinion, and I don't really think it's an opinion, I think it's just a fact that the United States, our financial education is, I think, purposely lacking. I think that's intentional. Um, and so I kind of definitely wanted to bring you on because I've always been fascinated with the infinite banking concept, but there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. I was taught the wrong way when I was in the insurance industry. And so just give us like a brief history of money so that we can understand what it is that you do and how that all works and comes together.
Yeah. So this will be interesting because you have experience in the, you say insurance industry. You talking life insurance?
Yes, sir. Well, I did all of it. I've done life insurance, property and casualty insurance. I've done corporate kind of, back end business insurance, insurance businesses. I've done E&O insurance. I've written policies like that. So I've got a pretty broad understanding. However, I let all my licenses and everything lapse. I really hate that industry because of the way I was brought up in that industry. That's not to knock what you're doing. I've had a couple of other people who are very successful in the insurance industry and they love it. I think it's just the difference between how I was recruited into the industry and trained versus how they were recruited into the industry and trained. And so that's really my beef with it, man. I'm curious. I'm still open-minded enough to hear people talk about this stuff. I just had a meeting last week with a guy that I met on LinkedIn. We're not even in the same niche. He's just a really cool guy, and he's like, hey man, I got this really sweet job. I've been looking for a job forever and I'm going to be selling insurance. I was like, dude, book a call with me so that I can prepare you, because I don't know what you've been told. You know what I mean? Like, I want to tell you what my challenges are. And, it was great to jump on a call with him and hear how he was recruited and all of the things that he was made aware of before he signed on the dotted line, or however you want to call it. And he had a great experience. I did not, man. I'll tell you right now, I started knocking doors, selling life insurance to seniors. And by seniors, I mean the poorest one third of Americans in rural Tennessee, rural Georgia, rural North Florida, and sometimes rural South Carolina. So I'm knocking on doors to people who have trees growing out of their roofs, cockroaches are crawling up my legs. There's, $100,000 cars in the driveway with no power in the house, and half of these people it's 2020, 2021, and they don't have bank accounts. So that was my experience with it. What ultimately led me to leave that job was I was on a 9-month advance commission at 75%. There were obviously bonuses that you could be made to get more percentage, but I couldn't keep anything in force because nobody taught me anything about how to follow up with your book of business. I thought you write the premium. I didn't know anything about chargebacks. So essentially, I got to this point where everything was falling off my books. Nobody would teach me how to follow up. They'd just be like, you need to call this dude and convince him to stay. And it's like, these people don't have any money. How can I convince them to stay? So I'm thinking I'm out here, and let's be honest, 9 months advance on $100 a month premium at 75%. That's a lot of money. You know what I mean? And then it's coming due. I got to pay all that back the next month. So I basically feel like I can't spend any money for at least 9 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so not the industry that I know because of the niche that I'm in. But man, that industry gets a really bad rap, but for a reason, right? Just like the used car salesman gets a bad rap, you're going to find some good ones. Just like real estate agents, real estate. I'm sorry, if you're a realtor, 95% of you are terrible to the point of being unethically bad at your job. And I'd say the same about the life insurance industry. 95% of life insurance agents are so bad it's unethical.
Yeah, I was being taught all the unethical strategies, from getting them out of this policy that has some cash value to putting them in a shorter term
Oh yeah, like
policy
turning and
that costs
churning, which
more.
is illegal. Yeah.
Yep, yep. No, that was I won't go out and say that that's what they were teaching, but that is very much what it was insinuated.
Yeah. Yeah. All these implied undertones that, yeah. So that, yeah, again, well, I'll start with, what this concept is. If you think about everything we've been taught about money, and really it's everything we haven't been taught about money, is way more than what we have been taught about money. But everything that you see in the mainstream media and in these traditional financial planning arenas, you'll see one common thread. And that common thread is everything is designed to take money out from under your control and put it under somebody else's control. 100%. That's how it's designed. And it's designed, and it's so um, pervasive that we just come to think of that as the norm. Like, oh, well, of course, I can't control my own money. I can't invest my money. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not as smart as these Wall Street dudes. So, of course, in order to make any money on my money, I've got to give that to somebody else and abdicate my responsibility to grow my capital and leave that to somebody else. And you know what? I'm going to do that because that's what everybody else is doing. And hey, if I go down, we all go down together. So we're really all in the same place anyway. And it'll just be the fault of the market, not my own fault. So what it does is it removes personal responsibility from us to actually take control of our own capital and kind of determine your own destiny, and you abdicate that to somebody else who doesn't give a rat's ass about you 9 times out of 10. Um, the institution does not care about you. Your financial advisor may care about you. I would hope they do, and they probably do. But the
For
institution
three
they
and a
work,
half percent, they better.
yeah,
Yeah, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
right.
Like, uh,
They should care because yeah, the more capital you grow every year, the more money they make. Or you could lose capital every year and they'll still make money, just not as much. So there is some self interest for them to grow your money. But the institution they work for does not care about you. That's for sure. As much as they like to say they do. But yeah, these financial institutions operate by a couple rules. Give us your money, give it to us on a regular basis, consistent basis, like monthly drafts from your paycheck. Keep it with us as long as possible. And when you want to take it back, take out as little as possible. Like those are the four principles they live by. And if you follow, the traditional route of people with a job, it's not the same. In the military, we have the TSP, there's no match or anything like that. As a military vet, as a DoD employee, civilian side, there is. But if you look at that model, like the 401k model, it's exactly that. It's, hey, I'm going to give you my money automatically every single paycheck. I'm not even going to see it. It's going to come out and go direct to you. I'm going to keep it there until I'm 65 freaking years old. And then I'm going to start taking it out, but I'm only going to take out a little bit at a time, like only as little as I have to live on, while I scrape by in retirement and worry about outliving my money. Like the worst thing in retirement is to live too long.
and I see my parents going through that right now. My dad's 66. He's going to work till he's 72 because he's terrified that he's going to outlive his retirement. But he's been manual labor for his whole entire life, fixing commercial kitchen equipment for 40 years. Both knees have been replaced. He needs to have another replacement done. He can't bend his leg all the way. He's exhausted. He's upset because he can't work like he used to. And it's like, man, I don't want to be like that. You know what I mean? Like I know it's possible to not have to live like that.
Absolutely. But we're not taught that, and we're not provided any other options. Now, what I do is I show individuals and a lot of business entrepreneurs, and pilots. Actually, one of my biggest niches is pilots because I speak the same language. Um, I show them how to put at least some of their money under their own control and accumulate their capital somewhere where they can grow it and access all the growth completely tax free for the rest of their life, where there's guarantees that it will never decrease, it will only increase, where they can access it and it will continue to grow for them at the exact same time. So they're no kidding putting using the same dollar in two places at the same time. So how many places do you know of that you can get uninterrupted compound growth? There's not many. The only Yeah, but the concept I teach people is how to get uninterrupted compound growth on the money you're saving, you're capitalizing your system with, and when you need it, you can access it. But guess what? Even when you access it to go use it to go buy a new car or take a vacation or whatever, or handle an emergency, it's still going to compound for you over here as if you never used it. So that concept is banking, where you get to leverage your own money, you get to control your own money, and you get the rewards the bankers usually get on your money by putting it in a commercial bank. So that's the process I teach people, is the banking process. Now to perform the process of banking, you have to use a product to do so. Well, the best product I've ever been exposed to in 14 years of understanding what this is specially designed dividend paying whole life insurance. So, believe it or not, whole life insurance, which is the world's most hated product, or America's most hated product, because the likes of Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, and all these other financial entertainers, who don't know enough about it to speak to it, or they're being purposely deceitful about what it is and what it does. That's what everybody hears. What they don't hear is all the living benefits of such a product if you use it correctly and if it's designed properly by somebody who's trained in the ways of designing these for the purposes of creating your own banking system. So, and that's what I do. And I don't know if you ever got exposed to even the power of what that product can do for people, because you probably weren't selling that kind of product to a bunch of poor old people.
I was actually, I really do like whole life insurance just generally. I was selling term, whole life, IULs, what is
Final
it?
expense insurance, probably.
Yeah, final expense. Yeah, that's what I started. I cut my teeth in that. I really do, and I see the benefit of whole life, right? Like it's very clear to me what whole life insurance is. You pay a premium till it's paid up, you get a cash value, end of story. Like that makes sense to me. Like you're like term. I always referred to term insurance as you're renting your insurance, and that's just how it is, right? Like it's really meant to me. Term is meant for people pretty much our age, with children who are out in the workforce, particularly more dangerous jobs, right? Because that's going to ensure at $1 million for minimal payment that if something happens to you, your wife and kids are taken care of, right? So term insurance, time and a place, understand the product, but you're renting your insurance. Whole life, again, time and a place. Typically, at about our age, is where I'd like to see people get into it. If you're relatively healthy, it will not cost you a whole lot in premiums. You can get a good $40,000 policy right at $100 a month. It's paid up in like 20 years. Then you've got cash value. But I never really got into how you structure whole life so that you can use it for infinite banking. As I started learning more and more, I was fascinated by IULs. I think IULs have a place and I think that they can serve a really good purpose and I see the value in them. But I was just starting to learn that side of things when I left the industry altogether. So infinite banking was something I had heard of, but never ran across anybody that really could explain how it works or how those are structured. I think I still have a couple of tabs bookmarked from my time in the insurance industry about infinite banking. But when I was learning about it, I was like, oh, so this is how rich people do it. Like this is how ultra wealthy people create generational wealth, right? They are literally borrowing money from themselves to make the note payment to pay themselves back the interest, all while it's compounding over here. And it's like, well, duh. Like, who doesn't want to do that?
Well, and the cool thing is you don't have to be ultra wealthy. What I always say is look at what the wealthy do and look at what the banks do, and replicate what they do, not what they tell you to do. Because banks tell you, give us all your money. They would never tell you go buy whole life insurance. But guess what banks own? They own billions of dollars of whole life insurance. And there's a reason. So I'm like, oh, well, there must be something to this product if banks, who are the smartest institutions on planet Earth when it comes to money and creating more of it, taking a little bit and creating a lot of it, there must be something more to this. I mean, I've got clients who make 50,000 a year, and I've got clients who make $1 million a year. I've got clients who put in $5,000 a year in premium, and other clients who put 100,000 or 130,000 a year in premium. I myself pay six figures in premium because I know what the power of it is, and I understand it inside and out, and that's what I help other people understand is that process of banking, which the process of banking goes on and it's happening in your life, but who's playing the banker in your life? It's probably not you.
So are you saying for as little as right at $400 a month, people can start this infinite banking concept right now? Because that comes out to about $5,000 a year in premium.
Yeah, yeah, you could start that. I mean, I started three policies in 2010. I was thinking between the three of them, I was paying a total of about $12,000, and now I've got 13 policies that I pay well into the six figures in premium every year because I understand the power of it and what it can do for me today, not just when I die, what it'll do for my kids, which is going to be immense. And life changing, but it's life changing what it has done for me today. When I told you I transitioned from corporate America to running my own business, where do you think all of my cash was? It was in my cash value, and I can access it anytime I want. So I built up enough cash value in there to feel confident to go run my own business. And I've just been doing that, since 2010 and building that up. And the first house I ever flipped in 2016, I borrowed against my cash value to go flip that house. You know what happened? Um, it was a house. I was like, 2 months, I'll be in and out, right? This will be a piece of cake. Paint, carpet, no problem. And I don't swing a hammer. So I hire a contractor to do it. So I did the numbers. I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to work. 2 months in and out. I borrowed against my life insurance to fund the entire rehab. Well, 9 months later, the house still hadn't sold. And I had spent like $75,000 on a rehab, and the house was still up for sale. But the great thing about that, the bright side to that story was that 75,000 I had borrowed against my cash value. Nobody was calling me asking for that money back. The insurance company wasn't knocking on my door or calling me at dinner time or sending me letters threatening to garnish my wages or something or take me to court because I hadn't made any repayment towards it. It didn't matter. I can repay it whenever I want or never. So when I sold the house after 9 long months, I cashed out. I lost $11,000 total on my first house flip because it was an education I was getting. And I didn't listen to the people that I should have listened to on some things. I thought, this is the exception. But anyway, I cashed out and repaid my loan. And then guess what? It was available for me to use again on the next flip. I just recycle my money. That's all I do. I teach people to recycle, resell their money over and over. And I love it because I know what I'm doing is not only helping all of my clients today, and it's helping all of my clients' children and grandchildren in the future for generations to come, hopefully. But I've got a podcast, right? My buddy, his name is Paul, he's an Army aviator, Apache guy. We met during our deployment together in 2013. We were sitting in the planning cell together. And he's also an IBC practitioner, infinite banking concepts practitioner like myself. And we got a podcast. We have over 120 episodes on this topic. Like, life insurance is not sexy, right? But we've got enough. We've got probably the top rated podcasts in that genre, and 120 and still going strong because there's so much about the process of banking, especially for entrepreneurs to understand money and to understand controlling their own money and stop relying on having to go get a loan or a line of credit from a bank and create your own banking system. And it can be done. It can be done in a short amount of time. It could be done over a decade or two. But start today, because 10 years from now, guaranteed you will not regret it. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I've never had a client not be happy they did this.
Yeah, let's go into this then. Let's say I come to you. I'm like, hey, Befort, I need some help, bro. I got 20 grand in cash right now. I don't want to put this in a bank because I'm going to get 0.5% interest on that. What are you going to advise me to do? How are you going to set it up? And what is maybe that going to look like for me?
Yeah, well, so I would first thing I would do is make you read a book called Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. It's 92 pages. It should take you less than 3 hours to read, because I don't work with anybody who doesn't get educated on this topic. Like, you go to any other financial institution, do they ever say, hey, read this book and study up on this investment before you give me your money?
No, they push the paperwork in front of you as fast as they can and get you to sign it without reading the fine print before you can see that you're going to be paying 9% interest over here. And if you miss a payment, that's going to jump to 18.5%. Right. And it's
Right. I mean, all they do is or any financial institution out there that wants to control your money, they say, hey, just give me your money. I'm going to make you feel safe and confident. Don't worry about it. Don't even look at your statements. Just give it to me when you're 65. I'll have built it up really really big and you can start living your millionaire lifestyle at 65 years old. Okay. What my process is first and foremost education. You got to get educated. So that starts with that book and my podcast. And if you listen to the first 4 episodes of the podcast, you have a pretty good understanding of what this is and whether it's something you want to continue exploring or not. Um, and then from there, the podcast is Wealth Warehouse, and it's on every platform imaginable, I think. So YouTube, iTunes, uh, Spotify, whatever. But you start at the beginning for a few episodes, and then you can skip around. I mean, we compare, the traditional vehicles like a 401k or a 529 college plan for your kid, and why I hate those with a passion. They're a terrible product, and I tell you why. You're probably not going to get that from any other institution because they're the ones hawking it. Um, and of course, I I talk really highly about specially designed whole life insurance because so I didn't get into life insurance. When I transitioned to this business, I didn't say, I want to be in life insurance. No, I said, I want to teach people about the infinite banking concept and how they can become their own banker because I'd been doing it for 8 years personally by that point. And I'd seen it firsthand, the power of it and the ability it gave me to transition to careers, to try new things without having to take a lot of risk and without all that fear. Um, so I said, I want to teach people this concept because I tell enough people about it. I might as well spend time building a business around it so I can tell more people. Some people were like, oh, you're just in it for the commissions. I'm like, well, I mean, are you not a capitalist? Do you not like to make money? And do you think I could bring this to thousands of people if I wasn't getting compensated for my time? Heck no, there's no way I would do that because I have to earn a living. But this help allowed me to, I really hit my stride 5 years ago when I got into this business because it put me around people that I like, not like in the real estate investment world where I could not stand the people I had to work with in that world. Just a bunch of, a lot of snakes and scoundrels, some good people, but I just didn't care for them. But in this business, I get to work with people I like of my choosing. They come in educated, so I'm not working with idiots. Um, they they see the value of this, and I know it's a good thing for them as long as they do it correctly. They get educated and they do it correctly and learn the process. Um, and that's why my business has taken off over the last 5 years. It's pretty much doubled every year in 5 years. So I've 10x my business. I've more than 10x my business since the first year. I've like 20xed it, and I've 10xed it since year two.
Hell yeah, dude. I mean, we might have to have a conversation. I might have to start a little side gig here because I've always been interested in this, and I do recognize the power. I think this is a pretty deep question for you, but given what you experienced on your third deployment and the similarities that you talked about with the banks and the institutions, there's good people that care about you, but the institutions don't care about you. It's just like there's good leaders that care about you in the military, but the military itself doesn't give a flying fuck about you. Do you think that is why you fell into the infinite banking thing, and because you recognize that about the military and about the banks, and you saw a way to kind of serve the community in the way of financial literacy?
Yes, 100%. The first thing it starts with is understanding what the problem is. If you don't know what the problem is, the solution doesn't matter. You have to define the problem first. And when it comes to money, you got to understand the money game. And this doesn't take hours and hours and hours of your time to understand. It's read a few books. Read how privatized banking really works by Carlos Laura and Bob Murphy and Nelson Nash. Read Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. Read Warehouse of Wealth by Nelson Nash. Read a very scary read, but extremely eye opening if you're not afraid of the truth, The Creature from Jekyll Island. That, I mean, that book will open your mind like that Peru event you went to opened your mind. Like it will, you'll see behind the curtain of the banking system in our country and around the world, and it's really about the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank back in 1913. Yeah, well, it was Woodrow Wilson. He was the most damaging president in history of the country. He got us involved in World War One. He allowed the Federal Reserve to be created and the IRS, the income tax, all started under his watch. Um, but if you read that book, you'll understand how dangerous the Federal Reserve actually is, and how it's really just a cartel. It's a private cartel of bankers out for their own self interest. And we're the ones that foot the bill for it, us
I'm curious
Americans.
in infinite banking, you probably avoid like 99.9% of taxes doing things that way, correct?
So you can't pay life insurance premium with anything but after tax dollars. So your money goes in after tax. It accrues technically tax deferred, but in the way that we teach you this process, and because of the way whole life insurance works, you can access the gains completely tax free for the rest of your life. And then when you die, that death benefit is paid out income tax free to your beneficiaries. So they're not going to pay income tax on that money when they receive it. Like, it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful process. It's like you're creating all this cash value. And again, I'm very basic knowledge of how this works, but through specialized whole life policies, you're creating this cash value that you can then. I want to buy a Tesla. That's my new thing right now. I have no idea when that's going to happen, but I can get a pretty decent used one that's only 2 or 3 years old for like $26,000. I could go borrow that money to buy my car, pay myself back while my money's still growing, and if I die when that happens, my kids will still get the death benefit, right? Like that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So let's use that car example. You and I have been taught really two different ways that we can buy a car. What are those two ways that
Yeah, you
we've
can
been
pay
taught?
cash for it. You can pay cash for it or you can finance it. And you're going to finance it right now. A used car interest rate right now, I have like a 750 credit score. Not embarrassed or whatever. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. And like the best interest rate I can find right now is 8.5% on a used Tesla.
Ouch. So borrow somebody else's money or pay cash. Now, what if I told you that either one of those options, either one you do, you're financing the purchase of that car? That's a concept that doesn't make it sense to most people on the face of it. Obviously, when you're going to the bank to get a loan, you're financing the purchase of that because you owe the bank interest. But when you pay cash, you're giving up the interest you could have earned on that cash for the rest of your life. So when you give away $20,000, $26,000 to buy that Tesla, now you have a Tesla, but no cash. What if that cash could have been earning for you even a minimal return every year for the rest of your life? What's the actual opportunity cost of that cash that you just used? It's probably somewhere in the six-figure range, right? But if you can first put that 26,000 into a policy where it shows up as cash value, now that 26,000 will be earning interest and dividends for you for the rest of your until the day you die, and you can leverage it at the exact same time using a line of credit from the insurance company to go buy that car with cash.
So you're actually still earning the gains even though you've leveraged that to go buy that car, whether you make.
Yeah, because you don't actually take out your own cash. That cash value, there's some misunderstanding. Most people's understanding of whole life insurance is based on somebody else's misunderstanding of it, like Dave Ramsey and the way he describes it. Um, that cash value actually just represents the equity that you have in the death benefit. You own part of that death benefit. It's equity. And you can borrow it just like you can borrow against the equity in your house if the bank lets you. Um, in this case, the insurance company has to let you. But kind of like borrowing the equity in your house, you're not actually taking money out of your house. You're borrowing money from the bank, and that equity in your house is the collateral. So if you don't pay that money back, guess what? The bank just takes that could take your house actually, right? With the insurance company, your equity and your death benefit is your cash value. You can borrow up to that amount from the insurance company directly. And then you control the repayment terms 100%. How much you pay it back, when you pay it back, all of that. They're going to charge you some interest on that while it's outstanding. But as soon as you pay it back, it's available to borrow again. And the whole time, that money in your cash value, your equity, was earning guaranteed growth plus dividends.
That's cool. That's really cool. I assume you probably make all purchases like that now, right? Like that's probably the only way you want to do business anymore. When you understand this, and I think even more when you participate in it, it really becomes like just life for you, huh?
Yeah, it is. It becomes, you start thinking about, man, I've got, so this happened to me like a year ago. I had all my policy premiums paid and all my loans paid back. So I didn't have anywhere else to store money except in somebody else's bank. And I was like, and I had to, I had to go buy, uh, I had a big bill. I just moved into a house, so we were buying a lot of stuff. I was like, this feels like a kick in the stomach that I have to use my cash to go buy stuff before it's used as premium in my policies and captured forever. But it was poor planning. I didn't have any policies available that I could fund. They were all fully funded, loans repaid. So I had to use my cash and I lost the opportunity to ever earn anything on that cash again. So it feels like a kick in the stomach now to think about using big chunks of cash to go pay cash for something because I'll never have that cash back that I can earn on.
Well, so that brings me to another good question because I really want to understand this because I think this is important, and I think this can give a lot of value to the veteran community, particularly if they're willing to listen. But you said you didn't have another policy. Why not just start another policy? Is that not how it works? Are you limited to a certain number of policies per year? What does that look like? Because I really want people to understand, right? Like I know because I've talked to them, there are veterans sitting on enough cash in the bank to really get started in a big way with this, I think. And by that I mean, I've talked to a couple of veterans, one E8 who was retiring, and him and his wife put enough money away that they were really just going to travel the world for 18 months. That's what they were going to do. And I'm like, you've got a significant amount of money put away. If you're neither one of you going to work, you're going to take you, your wife, and your two kids, and you're just going to travel the world for 18 months. So logically, you don't have to be a genius to figure out that that's a significant amount of money sitting in the bank. And so, how does that work? Because you said you were sick at your stomach spending this cash, right? Because you had nowhere you could put it over here. How do we get to that point? You know what I mean? Like, how many of these can we have? What does that look like?
Yeah, you can have as many as a company will write on you up until you hit your human life value, which we always say, every life is priceless. But according to actuaries, which actuarial scientists actually run these insurance companies, and which is why they've been around for over 100 years and have been profitable for every year or every single year and paid dividends to policyholders every year for over 100 straight years. It's because of actuarial science. Uh, but so they'll take your, like at our age, you're going to take your annual income and multiply that by 20 because you have roughly 20 working years left until that arbitrary retirement age of 65. So they say, hey, you got 20 years left. We're going to assume you make this income every year for the next 20 years. That's how much you're worth. So if you make 100 grand times 20, it's $2 million. That's how much life insurance you can have. But how much premium you can put in, I mean, you can design the policy to accept hundreds of thousands of premium without exceeding 2 million in life insurance potentially.
Got it.
So they'll
So it's you play with the premiums, not really it's not about the death benefit, it's about how you put premiums into the policy.
Right. So when everybody thinks of insurance, they think, I want to pay the least amount of premium for the most amount of insurance. We do the exact opposite. We say, I want to pay the most amount of premium for the least amount of coverage because in doing so, I maximize my cash value growth, which is available in about 2 weeks of funding your policy. You don't have to wait for 5, 10, 20 years. You get access to it a couple weeks later. But and it's a great place to, and I work with a lot of clients who, They save up money because they don't want to put it all on the market. They're like, I've got enough in the market that's at risk. I need some safe money. And they save up like $100,000 in cash just sitting in somebody else's bank. So we can design a policy where they can get all 100,000 into their policy right away and yet only continue a manageable premium every year after. So we focus on the premium. Whatever death benefit that kicks out is what it kicks out. We can increase that pretty easily through some different design techniques. But that's where I come in. I'm an expert in that. But I would advise to any veteran thinking about doing this, if you have not retired yet from the military or and haven't gone through the VA, you need to get life insurance in place before you do that because the VA will wreck you. They will absolutely wreck you on paper to make you uninsurable. I've had several clients who are uninsurable. Life insurance companies won't touch them because of what their VA records say.
What's the most common thing you're seeing on there that they're disqualifying them for?
Pretty much a disqualification around the board is anything to do with mental health or um, because that's what the VA tries to push. The guy helping you out, right? They're like, we're going to try to get you 100% disability and help you out. So, in order to do so, we have to say you have chronic anxiety or mental health, depression, suicidal thoughts. All of that's going to get you 100% disability. Well, it's also going to make you uninsurable. So, before you go the VA route, you need to get life insurance in place. And I recommend specially designed whole life because term has a purpose, but it's a temporary solution to a permanent problem. You are going to die someday. And it's most likely going to be after that term insurance expires 99% of the time.
And you've paid the balloon payments on it too. Yeah. Yep. No, that's funny, man, because I'm not uninsurable and I have a rating of 70% for TBI PTSD. So, it's interesting. And speaking of that rating, I spent probably $15,000 after I got out of the army just to get my medical to go to flight school because of that rating. So I understand what you're saying about it fucking people, because it screwed me over. And it was, I was living under I don't know, I definitely enjoy that I accomplished becoming a pilot because it was a lifelong dream. I thought that being a pilot forever was my lifelong dream. And really, it just turns out it's just something else I wanted to accomplish because it's cool. It really is cool to be able to fly. I don't know if you feel the same way, but like when my first solo, that's the highest I've ever been in my entire life. I was like, this is fucking cool, man. This is bad. I'm doing this and not a lot of people do this. This is cool.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing cooler than being solo also. Being up there by yourself like that, that's total control.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But no, it's sad that we served our country and we can't even insure our own lives because of mental health. And I think it's a tragedy, man. It's awful. And I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. So how fast do these policies compound and like what kind of growth are we looking at? Let's kind of give some perspective. I don't know, just some generic numbers, or if you have a specific example you want to give, like walk us through what you would set a client up with at X amount for a certain number of years, and you can probably bank on having this much by this age, or if it works like that.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. It does work like that where you can actually forecast how much you're going to have. And and it all depends on how much premium that you can pay, that you can use to capitalize your system. And that's kind of the terms I use. I don't say you got to pay your premium. Don't look at this as an expense. When you read the book and get educated on it, you shift your mindset from I'm not this isn't an expense. I'm building an asset. And this asset is my favorite asset because it's guaranteed to grow. It's guaranteed to be there when I need it most, which is the day I die. And I've got all these living benefits in the meantime, but it's very individually tailored. So I can't give you a generic example of, hey, if you pay this much, you'll have this much, because it's all completely based on, your 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 sex, your age, your health, and your income, and then how much premium you can pay. So, but I do tell people One of those core fundamental principles that everybody, even like Dave Ramsey, I bash on him quite a bit because there's very little I agree with him on, and I don't like his approach.
I'm not a fan of his
But
either.
even he would, yeah, he's cynical and he's arrogant and he talks down to people. But anyway, but he does it in a southern accent, so it's really cool. It's really friendly. But you everybody would agree. Even reading a book like The Richest Man in Babylon, that's a great book about finances, really about wealth creation. Everybody would agree that you should save 10% of your income, hands down. Nobody would disagree with that. And if you can do more than that, do more. So I say, first, you need to be able to save. So if you can save 10% of your income, the next question is, where should I save this money where it will serve the most benefits possible over my lifetime for me and my family? And I've never been exposed to a better place that provides more benefits for you over your lifetime and following generations than in specially designed whole life policies. So that's a good place to start.
Right, because $600 a month in premium will go a long way, I imagine.
Yeah, especially when you look over the years, man. I mean, how quick does life go? The older you get, the quicker it goes. All of a sudden, it's 10 years later, and you're like, wow, I've got more cash value than I've ever paid in premium. And every year, that delta is getting bigger and bigger. And I can access all of it tax free. And when I die, my family is going to be just fine. No matter if I die at 50 or I die at 90. In fact, if I die at 90, they'll get even more money because the longer you live
Right,
every
that's the
year,
beautiful part.
yeah, the longer you go, every year gets better. You get more death benefit, more cash value every single year. It's a great thing. And I don't like some people go all in. Like I myself, that's the only place my money goes before it goes anywhere else. That's my foundation. For other people, you may have a great benefits plan and you're like, I still want to do the match, get my match on the 401k. Great. I'm not going to tell you not to because I'm not a financial advisor, but you need to have some capital somewhere that you're certain that you can access, that you're absolutely 100% guaranteed that it will be there for you when you need it. I mean, I've got an example. I'm working with a couple right now who um, have been putting 60% of their income into the TSP as a civilian. So all this money's, they got a big nest egg there. They bought a big annuity over here. They paid off their home. So they got $1 million of equity in their home. And then they have a big emergency that costs a lot of money. How much capital do you think they had access to that they didn't have to pay a penalty or taxes on? Zero. They had $0 available. So then you only have two options. You go in debt by borrowing the bank's money or put everything on a credit card, or you take money out of those qualified accounts and you get a 10% penalty and income tax hit on it because you didn't have money somewhere that you could access.
Man, that sucks, dude. I this is fascinating. I can't wait to I'm gonna go read Becoming Your Own Banker, and I'm gonna watch Wealth Warehouse probably tonight. In fact, because I've always been interested in this, and you have really painted a very clear picture for me, which was not happening when I was in the industry. When I was in it, and um, that kind of brings me to what are your goals and aspirations for Max Performance Financial? Are you at a point where you're just going to kind of keep doing what you're doing, or are you looking to grow heavy and scale some more? What does that look like if that's the case? Kind of just what do you see for the future for Max Performance Financial and yourself?
Yeah, this is a business that gets better every year and it becomes easier to acquire new clients every year because it's a referral game. You got the podcast, you build your business around bringing in more leads passively. The lifeblood of any business is leads. Like you got to have leads or else your business dies. And after, it's one of those businesses that builds on top of itself every year. So every year, I mean, I've got a calendar link. Anybody can get on my maxperformancefinancial.com website where they can schedule time with me. I get meetings that auto populate. Tomorrow I have like 6 meetings from people who just find my link somewhere and just schedule time with me and get on my calendar and talk. And I've got a couple more agents on the team that help with the underwriting process, and I've got an assistant that does a lot for me, which has allowed me to focus on a secondary business that I'm actually building with a core group of individuals that we built a company that we're taking public probably this summer, and we're yeah that's I haven't been advertising that because we're not at the point of soliciting, but because you asked, I'm telling you about it. It's yeah,
Brother, I'm excited to talk to somebody who's headed up for an IPO. That's awesome, dude.
yeah, and it's a community that we built over the last 4.5 years of a friends and family network who are actually paying a monthly membership fee to be a part of the community and bringing their capital forward to to be investors in something where one, their money is protected because everybody gets coming in right now, they're getting preferred shares to protect their money. Two, they get a guaranteed dividend every year. And three, when they get their money back, they keep earning because they're going to have part of the equity and the revenue that we're building. They're going to have a pro rata value in that. We've been doing that for the last 5 years on a smaller scale, but this one's going to go much bigger. So we've got, and we're utilizing whole life insurance death benefits as a value to start creating income streams for policy owners. So that would blow your mind. That strategy
It
alone.
just did. That did just blow my
So
mind the way
where
you said that. This is
yeah, but and it's all built around people coming together in a corporate body to create defenses against outside forces and create guarantees for ourselves that we can't do on our own on an individual level. You cannot do this kind of stuff. But if you all come together in a like minded fashion around a corporate body that's structured around sound principles and phenomenal investment banking strategies, you can create the kind of wins that everything's a win-win. It's not a zero sum game like we're used to, where for somebody to win, somebody else has to lose. No, what we've created is a structure where the more activity, the more anybody inside this circle wins, the more everybody wins. It's a pretty phenomenal. I mean, I'm so excited about it. We, we've we've got so many things going on with this company, and I think it's going to take the world by storm. It really is. And you know, we got an IPO, but I'm not getting rich overnight. I'm not, I don't have a big share ownership other than what my pro rata value is and what I participated either through a little bit of some or a little bit of value through sweat equity and my own money. I've contributed to it. Um, but everybody is treated the same with their pro rata value of whatever they bring forward right now. And the executives, I'm the CEO of that company. I'll be compensated with shares for the first 3 years. I don't even get a paycheck. Nobody does.
I think it's not about getting rich overnight. I just think it's really cool to be talking to somebody who's had a vision to get on board with a bunch of other people to put a project together that you then get to take public. Because you mentioned something earlier in the show where it's like he who controls the gold makes the rules or whatever, right? And it's like you've created this thing that goes against that. And I think that's the cool part, right? To get to sit here and talk to somebody who is a part of this thing that is breaking outside of the mold and going against traditional rules, if you will. That's what's really cool about you doing an IPO. And when do you expect? I know you may not have an answer, but you said later this year.
Yeah, we're hoping to. We have to wait really until the website is complete, and it's a web platform. I mean, calling it a website is like calling this a telephone. It's has so many more capabilities than just a simple website, which is why it's taken so long and so much money to create. But once that's live, hopefully by the end of June this summer, 2024. I don't know when this is going to air, but we will have a live website, and we'll be able to pair that with the PPM and the stock purchase agreement and start shopping that and send it through underwriting to get placed onto a major exchange. So I think once that website's complete, things are going to start moving very quickly.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on after you go public and talk about that experience because to date, your episode won't air till late August, but that's just because I'm proactive and trying to get as much content recorded as I can so that I can continue to build this thing. You're the first person to my knowledge that's got a company that is going to go public or is working towards going public that's really close. There's a couple other people that have a long-term 10-15 year vision for taking their companies public, but that's down the road. So it'll be cool to get you back on after that happens and talk about just maybe do like an hour-long special episode where you talk about like what you learned from that and the challenges and all of that. I think it'd be extremely valuable for the community and anybody in business even.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I think one of the partners and I are going to start a podcast, perhaps just for that company itself. But the name of the company is the Community Corp, and you may be able to, by the time this airs, I would assume the website's up and running, and hopefully we're in underwriting or through underwriting. But I always have these plans thinking it should take this long, but it actually takes that long. So yeah, I mean, I'm impatient. Yeah, it is, but we've got a great team. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I'm happy to come back and tell you more about it.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, so based on all your experiences, all of your transitions, do you have any unconventional advice that you want to give to veterans who are transitioning? Because here I started this, I think I started this idea that the path back to purpose for veterans is through entrepreneurship. I believe that for more reasons than I could sit here and list. I think the primary one is the theme of this show and what you had talked about earlier is control. I have control over every facet of my life, from honestly from making money to when I work out to when I get up in the morning to where I go. I just took the entire weekend off. I took Friday, worked a little bit Saturday and Sunday off because my childhood friend who we separated, he was a class behind me. I went to the Army. He joined the Air Force. Last time I saw him was the day I graduated basic training 21 years ago. And he happened to be in Orlando this weekend. It was so great to go over there and just put everything down, not have to ask permission, right? Like just go and do it, knowing full well that obviously my calendar is going to get backed up, emails are going to have to be answered, whatever. But I was cool with that because it was my decision. It wasn't somebody else's decision. So that's why I really believe the path to purpose is through entrepreneurship because of the control you get. So what advice do you have for those that are getting ready to get out who A didn't know entrepreneurship was an option or B are maybe a little apprehensive to dip their toes into the water?
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it earlier that I would never recommend somebody just quit cold turkey a paying job to pursue a business without having a proven concept in place for that business, especially if you have other people depending on you. You have dependents. Um, but the things you learn in the military are highly compatible with owning your own business, and I think it's doable. It doesn't have to be like some far fetched dream. That here's the thing: if one man can do it, another can do it. If one woman can do it, another can do it. There was always the first person to do anything, and then after that, everybody starts doing it. So learn from others. Listen to this podcast. Learn from all the other entrepreneurs being featured, and we all might say different things, but and do different things too. Like probably not many others are in the life insurance business, which is not something I ever dreamed I would ever be in. But it's funny. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You'd be surprised, brother. I've talked to 3 of you guys now. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I'm just like, maybe I'm meant to be doing something in there in the right way because the number of you guys that I've run across and what's even more funny about that is you guys are all higher ranking officers. I've not talked to a single enlisted dude that has had a good experience in the insurance industry, but all you officer types, you guys all have phenomenal experiences and you're running around, teaching people the right way and not taking advantage, not being slimy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's enough people doing that. We don't need to be doing that too. Uh, being slimy and all that. But I would focus on you've spent your entire career doing maybe hopefully a career field that you enjoy, but you've been taking orders from somebody else. Everybody takes orders from somebody in the military, and you haven't had much control or say in where you live and what you get to do and when you report to work and what days you take off. Um, it's possible. It may take you a while to get there and find the right thing, but it's absolutely 100% possible because plenty of people have done it before you. So just keep learning from those that have gone before you. And when something will speak to you when it feels like that's the right direction, that's the right niche, and don't let that fear hold you back from making a decision. When I left after 12 years active duty, I remember telling everybody, if fear is the only reason you're staying here and making it and staying for 20 years, then you should get out, because that was the only reason I could come up with to stay in the military was I was scared to leave, which is common. Everybody's scared to leave because you got, the Uncle Sam's nest over here that you get everything you need, all the benefits, you get a steady paycheck, and it's comfortable. Right. Um, but don't get comfortable, right? The growth is being outside of the comfort zone. That's it.
It really is. It so much is. I never would have thought that I would have been on a camera, putting my face on the internet, talking to other people for 2.5 hours every single week. And here I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm making peace with it. And I'm having a ton of fun doing it, man. And I get to, the hidden agenda behind all of it is this is a master class for me every time I sit down to talk to somebody else. I learn so much, right? And whether I can use it in my own business right now or if it's something that I put in my back pocket for later, I still learn valuable information. And it doesn't get any more fun than that to me. Like I learned everything I could have ever wanted to learn about infinite banking, right now when I was trying to do that and when I was in the industry and couldn't. And it's all because I put myself out there and met you via LinkedIn, reached out like, "Hey man, you want to come talk about what you do on the podcast?" And I think that's awesome. I think it's so awesome, dude. Um any key insights or personal mantras or philosophies that guide you through your journey that you'd like to share with veterans?
You know, one of my favorite quotes. I think I just saw it on a poster once. It says, "Nobody cares. Work harder." And as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of pity parties. Like, man, I'm doing all this work. Nobody's calling me back, or nobody's doing this. Nobody cares, man. Work harder. The world only cares about results. And in the military, you get a lot of guys who work long hours, but they never actually produce anything. They do it for the FaceTime or political reasons. Uh, that doesn't get you anywhere on the outside. Like, you got to put in the work, whether people are watching you, paying attention to you or not. And you do it consistently, you're going to get somewhere. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of mantras that I've written up on the board over time, and it's usually something different based on the phase of life I'm in or the phase of business I'm in that tries to motivate me. Or there's a lot of books out there about positive self talk. I'm kind of into negative self talk. Like, just suck it up, man. Nobody cares. Just do it. But there's room for positive self talk too. But I like that. Don't quit until the job's finished. That kind of mentality.
I think this is the only part I have to disagree with you on because the way I changed my life was through changing my internal monologue, not beating myself down, not telling myself to suck it up, but really focusing more on I am capable. This is a small victory. If you can get this small victory, then you can get another one and that compounds, right? And that's really kind of how I changed my life. I do sometimes, I mean, we're human, right? I still beat myself up a lot more than I probably should. But I think the difference now is I'm very aware of it and I correct it. So,
Yeah. And I love that you disagree with me because one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard during the hardest year of my life was stop taking advice from other people. Because you can go so many wrong directions by taking the advice of somebody and saying, yeah, I think you're right. But guess what? Nobody's been in your shoes before. You are walking in unique shoes that nobody else has walked in. And you know things about you and your life that nobody else is privy to. So taking advice, take it with a grain of salt, no matter who it comes from. And then weigh that. And like Bruce Lee says, take the good and discard the bad. But don't take advice from somebody wholesale just because they're a good person and they're successful in whatever they're doing, or because you think they know better than you. Like eventually, you got to make your own decisions in life, and so I love that, man. I mean, this is all about nobody. We can't have the same perspective.
No, well, and I think that's really what all of this is about is just opening people's eyes to how you should walk around on a daily basis and view the world, right? It should be not this laser focus one perspective. It should be this broad, very nice, like just seeing it from your point of view and seeing it from my point of view and any other guest who's been on this show. If you can take all of those, and obviously it's impossible to look at them all the same way, but if you can take chunks of that, like Bruce Lee said, take the good, leave the bad, right? Form your own way of looking at the world, you'll be so much more informed.
Yeah, yeah, and you'll arrive at where you're supposed to be, not where somebody else thinks you should be.
There you go. Yeah, man, comparison's the thief of joy. You can't compare yourself to others. You can study them and you can imitate, but at the end of the day, there's a million and one ways to get there, and yours will be just as unique as anybody else's. I love it, man. How can the listeners connect with you? How can they schedule some time with you? Where are you at on social media? I want everybody to be able to find you, man.
Yeah. So, what you connected with me on LinkedIn, and I'm really not that active on social media. My assistant is actually more active on my social media now than I am. She throws posts out there and stuff just because I did that for a long time, very consistently, and it paid off. And then I stopped because I had, you know, more business to deal with. But
Well, that's the progression, right? You have to give up time in the beginning and then you buy your time back by hiring people when the time is right. I grind it out on LinkedIn myself every single morning. That's the routine and it's going to be that way until I can afford to buy my time back.
yeah, there you go. At the beginning, you got more time than money, and then you got, enough money that you can buy some time back. So yeah, that's the progression. But LinkedIn, my profile, David A. Befort Jr. Just go to my homepage and you'll see some articles I've written. I've got hundreds of posts. Most of them are really old, but and some good articles on there. And my website, and you can check that out, maxperformancefinancial.com. I'm on Facebook. I don't do much personally, but my business link does under the same name as my business. Um, and then my podcast, Wealth Warehouse. So we cover a whole lot of different topics, but it really all comes back to controlling your capital and understanding what the problem is and having and rethinking your thinking when it comes to money. It's not all about whole life insurance. I don't think it's going to be this boring. If it was that boring, I can't imagine. I mean, that's 120, 30 minutes an episode. We've talked for 60 plus hours about this concept on there. That's the amount of content that's there. Um, I guess there is a way to make life insurance enjoyable to listen to and learn about because it's all about the process and understanding the fundamentals and the power of controlling your own capital in your own life. So if you can do that, then we seek the truth. I guess that's what we do. We're truth seekers, whether it goes against the mainstream or not. Most of it does. I think you'll enjoy the different perspective we have on mainstream finance.
I can't wait to dive into it, man. I'm excited. If you've got you said 60 plus hours of content about infinite banking and life insurance in general, I used to think that life insurance was pretty boring. So if you found a way to keep cranking out episodes like that and getting views, then it's definitely worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, yeah, we've got plenty of content, lots of listeners, and I don't know, 75,000 plus downloads, something like that.
Congratulations, brother. That's amazing, man. Good for you, dude.
It's all consistency. We just do it every week, one a week. We just pump it out, and we haven't missed a week in over 2.5 years.
There you go. And that's the strategy to success, folks. Consistency is key. Just keep grinding. Any final thoughts or anything you want to leave the audience with?
Man, no, I appreciate the time, and I hope everybody got something from it. And I'm always happy to take a meeting with anybody who's even maybe thinking about a career transition and stepping into the unknown of the entrepreneur world and business owner world and what that looks like. And if you want to talk money and finances, all the more better. Happy to do that too. So find my link and schedule some time with me, and I hope this was worth your time.
Hell yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, David Befort, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe. Send us your feedback via the email list. We're always looking for recommendations for guests, questions for guests. And thanks for being here, David. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, take care. We'll see you next week, everyone. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.